Hi, Dawn Lewis here for Darkroom Door, and we are going to play with this line art stamp called Strawberry Lady. I want to show you how you can colour this with Copic markers. All the colours that I'm using are on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, and I tend to work when working with Copics on such a large area. In those small areas first, I want to make sure that I have enough ink in my Copic marker, that everything is good to go, and you'll notice as I colour in the face, that's a large area. I go from left to right. I want to keep colouring across the section where I've already coloured so that my markers don't dry and give me that, texture overlap kind of look. And that's why I've gone all over here. Now, on the first coat, it's not as big a deal. However, as you move on, it's good to get an even layer on, and you may as well go for that even if it's not going to be straight up. Now, this lady doesn't necessarily have all of her fine features in, so you can see that I'm starting to do a little contouring, and this is where those makeup tutorials on YouTube come in handy. I'm giving her a little contouring. I want to shape her nose. This is going to tell me how wide is it, and you can give her a different look every single time. I tend to keep to my darker colours when I'm colouring faces around the outside of the face, and I've given her like a little bridge to her nose, so she's kind of got a little button nose happening here. But another time when I colour her, I could change that up completely and give her a different look. That's one of the joys. When colouring with this darker E30s tone, when you put this darkest colour in, the E33, it can be a little scary. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I err on the side of caution and I don't put in as much of the dark colour as I think I really should. But that's the beauty of Copic markers. You can always come back later and you can add those darker colours in, because as you go in and blend with paler colours, sometimes it takes out a little of the intensity, and with Copics you can just go back over them and over them and over them. They'll reactivate and they'll do their things. Also keep in mind, you can see here I'm coming back and putting in that darker colour. I did use a yellow red to just give a little colour, a little blush to her cheeks, and then it's all being blended out. And you see here I'm not afraid to get those darker colours in. Plus, the more often you go over a colour, the darker it's going to get. You can play back and forth until you achieve the look that you like. Up in the hairline, I love what the artist has done with this gorgeous stamp. Her hairline is the leaves. You can put in some drop shadows to give that illusion of the leaf or the hair being, over the face, but not necessarily right on the skin, and that's a fun idea as well. For those super pale areas in her eyes, I use the very palest of blues, because white isn't necessarily just white. I'm doing that with these flowers as well. I have some flowers on my strawberry plants at the moment and they're white, but when you really look at something in nature, it's not necessarily strictly white. There is some shadow cast on there, and maybe it's blue, maybe it's purple, maybe it's grey, maybe it's shades of yellow, cream or green, something that's reflecting what's around it, because colours often get reflected onto that white. I went in with pretty much the same colours for the skin, but just more intense for the lips, and it's kind of like her own nude lip colour, and I am here for it. I think it looks amazing, and I was really happy with the results. Just some lovely yellows for the centres of the flowers, and our lass has brown eyes. So I'm using a different shade of brown. I used E30s for the skin tone, but I'm using E80s for the eyes, just so she's got those super lovely dark chocolate eyes. A lot of people instantly think I have to colour with blue eyes because blue eyes are bright and pretty, but not necessarily. Sometimes we need to use those darker tones. Now for the hair, when you're colouring these leaves, there's not a lot of gaps that you need to look out for, and I like to start with the palest colour. The reason why I like to start with the palest colour is because it kind of primes the cardstock. However, when I want to leave a really bright highlight, I'll leave that area empty, so it's just white, and then you get a lovely bright highlight, and I can go over it at the very end, because when you colour over the top of a marker multiple times, it gets darker and darker and darker. So by not colouring a section in that very first pass over all of the leaves, same with the strawberries, same with anything really, you can leave a little white, and that's going to give you a brighter highlight at the end. I tend to look for where is the light going to hit this. However, I do remind myself quite often that there are no Copic police and I can pretty much colour this how I want, because the chances of someone comparing my coloured image to that lady down the road who really does have strawberries for hair is pretty slim. That's the fun of these beautiful, whimsical, fun line art drawings. Look, I love all of these. I've coloured them multiple times and I just love... One day, maybe I'll do her with pink strawberries next. I mean, is there a law that says I have to colour these strawberries red every single time? Maybe the strawberries could be blue. Blue raspberry, that's a flavour that you can buy at the shops. Who knows? But you can do this in whichever colours you like. I'm using quite fresh greens just because this is as true to real strawberry plants as I could find. But there's no rule that says you have to do these colours. If you do want to do these colours, you can find them in the lower left side, so keep your eye on those. And if at any point you're thinking, I want to write that down, there is a guide that you can pick up on the Darkroom Door website. I'm pretty sure it's still there. If not, I'm pretty sure it's on my website, so I'm sure Rachel can direct you to there, but all the colours are there. So you can always pause the video and make a note of the colours used. Also keep in mind, I have a big Copic collection because I've been doing this for over a decade. So I have all the colours, but you don't have to have all the colours. Remember, when you colour over something more than once, it gets darker. So I'm using 4 different shades of green on this, but you could absolutely do this with 2 or 3. So, you know, think a little outside the box when it comes to colouring. Now, of course, these images look amazing coloured in other mediums. I've coloured them in pencil once. Oh, that was a labour of love, but boy, I enjoyed it. It was so restful and it was just nice to sort of get out of my head. It's meditative almost. But these look great when you colour with other things. One of the things I'd like to give a go with these beautiful line art ladies is distress inks. Oh, I do like painting with distress inks. It's very fun. And if you're thinking, but how am I going to know where do the highlights go and the shadows? Feel free, pause this, screenshot it, copy what I do. Have a look where the highlights go. Don't agree with where I put my highlights? Put yours in a different place. Like I said, there's no Copic police coming to check this out and making sure that you've got it all right. You can colour this as you like. I put my highlights in the middles of my leaves, but perhaps you would like to put your highlights at the ends. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Use different shades of green, play around with it and see which one you like best. You can see here I'm done with my greens and I'm going over the entire area, including those little white spaces that I left, using that very palest colour, the G00, and getting that just right. On this particular strawberry lady, I love that there's a hard cutoff on the neck and some of them there's not, and we are going to blend it out and I'll show you them at a future date. We'll do those another day. But I chose the strawberry lady first just because, you know, I knew what colours I was going to use and I love that hard cutoff at the neck. Don't forget when you're working down around that neck area, there are 3 bunches of green and there are a couple of little tiny gaps in between the one on the left in the middle and the one in the middle and on the right. Don't forget to colour those areas as well. You can go back to the beginning of this video and see the finished image on the thumbnail and that'll give you a good idea of where I've put that colour in. You can also go through and if in blending out your colours, you've kind of desaturated it a bit and the shadows aren't as deep because the pale colours will do that. You can always take those darker colours and just go in and strengthen up those little darker pieces. Now let's talk about colouring with red, because as you can see here, this R20, it's not looking very red, is it? It's looking pink. Colouring with red in craft, and I've tried a lot of different crafts, but colouring in red I have found it can be a challenge. I like to work with paint, and one of the things I learned is that if I want to paint red on a surface, I can go over white, but it's going to take a lot of coats. But if you go down first with a shade of pink, you get a nice coat of pink under your red, you need less coats of red. I think that's a fun fact. I find red glaze difficult to work with. Red paint can be difficult to work with. red Copic markers seem to follow a little on that vein as well. You can correct areas where you colour outside the lines using a zero colourless blender. However, reds can be a little bit tricky. Now this is one of my favourite red colour combinations. It's a good basic. You can get most of the colours in this particular combo in Chow markers. So if you're just starting your collection, you're building your Copics on a budget, you can go with the Chow markers. I think you really only need to fill in one or two with the sketch markers to round out this collection. And it doesn't matter if you're using a mix of sketch and Chow, because the ink inside is exactly the same from one marker to the next marker. Now this is where we come in with that proper red with the R24. It's bringing in that nice proper red, although not those deep shadows. We're going to use the darker colors for that. But these are big areas to be coloring, and there's a lot of blending to be done. Now, truth be told, I probably could have put a second highlight on that really big strawberry. If I was going to do it again, I would put another highlight in that upper right hand corner. I think that would be perfect. Because you know, sometimes when you get a strawberry, it's not perfectly round. It's got like hills and valleys and rounded bits. I feel like that section I just put my marker over a moment ago, that would make a great valley. And where I've just coloured it in the upper right, I really feel I should have put another highlight on there. But hey, like I said, no one is coming for me for doing that. If you would like to do that, you absolutely can. And next time I do this colour this stamp, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to do that. So rather than colouring over the entire image with these paler colours, I'm just going around and blending the lines out. And I'm just going to work it a little bit of dark, a little bit of light, a little bit of dark, a little bit of light. Sometimes we make our highlights too big and sometimes we make our shadows too small. And it's just kind of a little juggling act. And that's the beauty of the markers. You can just keep coming back and playing with it until you're happy with it. And as I always say, if you get to the end and you think, you know what, that is not right, but I'm not going to do that mistake again, then it's not a mistake. You've learned something, and I think that that's the most valuable way that you can learn. So do check out these beautiful line art ladies in the Darkroom Door website. You'll find them linked below. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.